come on. Oh, somebody got greedy. Somebody got very greedy. Dude, I'm actually hacking. I'm actually just hacking. Yep. Kraken unleashed and a blind shot for the win. That did just happen. And I want to show you what happened before that. And kind of the decision making that goes into a game like this. Of course, the game wasn't too close by the end. We had a pretty clear advantage with all of our remaining ships having pretty much full HP, so there wasn't really much for that DD to do. But I do think there were some really interesting parts of this game that involve some really good decision making that you could maybe learn from in a ranked match. So that's probably the biggest thing here, is that there's submarines in ranked, and playing around them is a lot about camping the back of the map. That is essentially your best way to play a battleship, is to play at the back of the map. And the ship I have is no coincidence, I guess I'll say. The Warspite, I think, has the best anti-submarine warfare in the game as far as tier 6 battleships go. And I think as far as effectiveness, battleship anti-submarine warfare is pretty much the best there is. Destroyers have to get right on top of a submarine to drop their anti-submarine warfare, which of course is pretty much impossible when, a DD that's rushing into the enemy side of the map, he's going to die instantly. Whereas a battleship, you can kind of sit at the back and drop these airstrikes of depth charges and do a lot of damage to these submarines. So a lot of countering a submarine I have found to be playing near your own sub, playing near DDs, anything that can spot a submarine, and making sure you're going to be in range to drop that airstrike on them. As a weird mechanic, your anti-submarine warfare actually reaches farther than what it says it does. The 10 kilometers, at least for Warspite, is the maximum that you can at least put your reticle and then click and the airstrike goes through. But the airstrike is rather tall, and it stretches quite a ways away from you, and we'll have an example of that later on. But just know that you can have maybe 11 kilometers of range, and you should really be trying to make use of this as much as possible. It's going to make the lives of your DDs a lot better, because destroyers that get spotted by submarines tend to die very, very quickly. The other thing you should know is you want to save your damage control for the exact moment that the torpedoes are going to hit. If you have a longer duration damage control, like in American Battleship, maybe hit it as soon as you spot the torpedoes and where they're going. That will reduce the amount of time that they have locked onto you. Maybe you can dodge, and even if they do hit, they're not going to be doing citadel damage. Of course, citadel damage is one of the worst parts of playing a battleship, because you can only heal 10% of it. So taking that extra citadel damage from a submarine feels a little unfair, but it is something you can mitigate with that damage control. But of course, you're also using that damage control on fires, broken guns, and a lot of other smaller things. And honestly, there's a lot of pressure on damage control. So I find the best way is to just snipe from the back. Unfortunately, that is the way you're going to be playing a battleship against these subs, at least for the time being. Hopefully Wargaming makes some big changes to the class to make things more fun and interesting for everybody involved. I think subs themselves are pretty boring to play. Seems like a pretty binary situation where either you're going to kill whoever you're targeting and there's really not much they can do, or you're going to die and there's really not much you can do. That appears to be the situation. But at this point, we've only had, 2 salvos in the air, and it's 5 minutes into the game, 6 minutes into the game. Yeah, we haven't really done much yet. So that comes down to my positioning, and I'm always trying to set up a crossfire with my friendly battleships. Always. And ranked, it's really, really important to do that. It's a little bit difficult on this map since it's so open on the side that I've gone to, but it is doable, and that's why I've been kind of playing where I'm at. I'm trying to get these cross shots in on this Graf Spee. He is the most important target to take down, at least the one that we normally can spot. As you could see, we were getting some hits on that submarine as we finally end up killing that Graf Spee. He went broadside a couple too many times to us. And there you go, 4 hits on the submarine, and that should be some pretty good damage. And for the most part, he was actually outside of that 10-kilometer window. I'm just trying to stay within that range. And of course, with our main guns, we're always going to try and shoot DDs because that's just how you win games in ranked. As a battleship player, you want to take damage without dying for your team and deal damage to the enemy destroyers. That's where I'm just trying to play near enough that I can impact the fight, right? Our Farragut, sorry. Fletcher's tier 9. Farragut has very low health at this point, so I'm trying to help this engagement as much as possible. He's getting kind of bullied out by this submarine and this DD because he's getting outspotted, and then he's just losing a lot of HP. So it's a little unfortunate in that sense, and then our cruiser gets absolutely nuked here. So even though the game is looking like a pretty decent win for us, at least as far as the HP is concerned, we could lose quite a few ships here and a lot of map control. And of course, with Epicenter, the points tick up very, very, very quickly, especially that middle cap, so we really need to maintain at least some presence in there. Here you can see the destroyer's way of dealing with a submarine. It's so silly. He's risking his life and his hit points just to get over top of our sub. And it seems like he might be successful here at this point, but you can see how risky that is for a DD and how it's probably not the most fun way to play, because you know as a DD player, everybody's going to be mad at you when you don't go after the submarine. But going after a submarine as a DD is almost a death sentence most of the time until very late game. And it's kind of this weird dynamic where there's a lot of responsibility on destroyers to spot and deal with capture zones already, and the subs are just going to make their life even worse. I really don't like the way Wargaming is adding subs to the game at all. It seems like a really, really just horrible way to make the game slower and worse for everyone playing. But there we go. We clicked on the ocean and we killed the enemy sub somehow. Oh, man. I just don't think it's that fun to have a game mode where a lot of the ships are trying to remain unspotted most of the time. I'm playing this ship to shoot my guns at other ships, right? And it seems like we're straying farther and farther away from that as we move along in this game's development. That Le Glaciaire did a great job of baiting my shot. I'm not sure if it was to dodge torpedoes or if he was watching my guns, but whatever it was, a really well done job to bait me into thinking he was going to turn broadside and then turn in. It was really good to dodge my shells, and then he gets the DD kill for it as well, which is really well done. However, he's in a pretty rough spot now, being forced to turn broadside, and we get the perfect shot. Warspite, beautiful dispersion, and we get 5 overpens. And in a cruel twist of fate, his very first HE salvo lights us on fire. So you know RNG was having a good time in the background of this match. But regardless, eventually we'll hopefully be able to do some damage to this guy. He does have paper-thin armor. As we all know, the lower-tier French cruisers basically have no armor, and that's why you overpen them. Even with destroyer guns, oftentimes overpen them. The odd part, to me at least, is that with that paper armor, he gets 2 bounces the next salvo. So, yeah, we're getting a little unlucky against this guy, but it's okay. We have a huge, huge health advantage. All we need to do is stall and not throw our ship away, wait for our battleships that have pretty much full health to come join us in the fight, and we'll push into the middle, and it'll all be okay. 2 kills at this point. That did give us our extra consumable from Cunningham. Since Warspite is a premium, I am pulling him from my Conqueror, but we don't really make use of the Witherer thing on Warspite since we use AP most of the time. 3rd kill there, we finally get the Citadel when he's on low HP, and at this point, we've pretty much got things under control. I'm thinking that, at least. we'll wait on, bide our time, and hope that our battleships don't just push into the DD and die all at once. The Bayern actually is on very low HP, so it's possible we can kill him here. And this is one of the main reasons I love Warspite at tier 6. The guns do so much damage to enemy battleships. They overmatch, and they have really, really good dispersion. I think, as far as your options for a battleship, Warspite and Fuso are really the best two for ranked. If you're wondering what I'm doing here, and there's no submarine around, I am sending out these planes to see if the DD left his AA on. They can't actually spot enemy ships, but they will show anti-aircraft firing. So in a weird way, you can kind of send them out to scout areas of the map. Of course, most destroyer players should be smart enough to turn their AA off by now, but that's a really interesting way to maybe get some information out of these airstrikes that you maybe wouldn't have normally. It works a lot better against cruisers and battleships since they don't tend to constantly turn their AA off and on again. They don't really think about that, but every once in a while you get a destroyer like that as well. Now I need to mention how to dodge torpedoes, because I'm the first one in. It's likely he's going to torp me. So I'm guessing he's in the south and that he torped this line that I'm about to turn into here. That's a pretty standard thing for a destroyer to wait just until you're going to round the corner as far as the gray line is concerned, and then send their torps. So we turn into that, but don't see anything. And so that gets me a little bit suspicious that he might be on my right, and so we turn into that. It's all about predicting where you think the enemy DD is going to be. And there he is. The next thing you should think about is that when a DD starts firing at you randomly, when they don't have to, it means they're probably trying to bait you into turning to get all your guns off against them, and that's going to turn you into their torpedo salvo. That's usually the case. Of course, this T-61 might have been shooting to reset me on the cap, but I wasn't really close to finishing the cap, so I was assuming it was a torpedo threat. So I instantly turned back in directly towards him, and sure enough, he was greedy to gray line both of those. And now we've come to the moment we saw at the beginning. And this comes down to getting into the enemy player's head. What's he gonna do? He was last seen turning south. Well, he's also probably gonna try and stall out the points on the cap since he's at 700 points. So he's not gonna leave that outer ring. So how far do we think a T-61 can get in the horizontal distance as far away from me as he can possibly be? That is what I'm thinking. I'm lining up the horizontal on the minimap, and the vertical, I'm putting it right at the edge of the cap. And that's where I'm going to shoot. This is a complete guess. I am, in fact, not hacking, despite the sensational title. This is just a guess and, well, an intelligent guess, I would say. I know that he can't get too far away from where he was last spotted, and we know that he wants to stay in the cap. We get the middle cap, and of course, you know the rest. We got that kill for our Kraken Unleashed, and we finished the game off like that. Pretty insane, and something that I talk about a little bit more in detail in my aiming video, which I'm sure most of you have watched since that's what really blew my channel up. But it doesn't hurt to take the shot. You can always reload in 30 seconds or so. So that game resulted in only 86k damage, but a Kraken, Confederate, high caliber, and a lot of fun. I gotta say, that was a pretty good one for me. It started off my night of playing the game really well. We ended up top on our score by quite a bit, and like I said, this game wasn't really that close of one. I can't really call it a hard carry or a solo carry type of job, but we did do most of the heavy lifting for our team, and we actually didn't get shot at all that much, which was pretty cool. So I really do enjoy the Warspite at tier 6. It really does suffer when you fight against the tier 8s and tier 7s, but at its tier, this ship is amazing. This is my Conqueror commander. Keep that in mind. So that is why we have things like the gun feeder. Really, you're not going to use that all that often on a Warspite since your HE is not that massively improved British HE that we all know. Grease the gears, super important on actually both ships. The other one that is 2 points that I really like is Vigilance. And since there are submarines, you could take this anti-submarine warfare expert and buff that even farther. Again, Adrenaline Rush, and then your normal tier 4 points. Pretty standard stuff, I gotta say. Nothing too fancy there. I'm just trying to have a normal build in this kind of scenario since we don't really know how to play against subs at this point since they're so new yet. I am running the anti-submarine aircraft mod, so they hit a little bit harder and reload a little bit faster. That's the primary motivation behind that. And of course, the standard upgrades. This is a lot of damage, actually. This is, I think, the highest at the tier. You get 3,450 with this build, and you can buff that even further if you take these extra ones. Another 10% right there as far as damage. And then this one is just reload time. But if you want to get all the damage you can get, it's pretty good. And of course, one of the best parts about the Warspite one is that you actually get 2 charges of it. It reloads the first one, and then it starts the reloading of the second one. It's very rare that you're just going to be using it all the time, at least as far as I've found. So having 2 charges that you can drop, I think it's 3 or 4 seconds apart from each other, is really powerful. And ships like the Americans, the Arizona is an example of a ship I've been playing a little bit, it only gets 1 flight available. It does, I believe, drop a few more bombs, gives you a even farther reach outside of your range. It's a really long, narrow, tall reticle, but you only get 1. You can't save up 2, actually. And that's one of the reasons that I've been kind of leaning towards the Fuso and the Warspite, since the Fuso also gets 2 flights available, which is really, really nice to have. And honestly, I don't think you should be really playing ships like the Bayern or anything without anti-submarine warfare. If there's subs in the game, you probably shouldn't be playing it, because you need to at least have something to damage the submarines with. Which is why I think Wargaming should give everything at least something to deal damage to the subs with, but I don't know. They're kind of all over the place in terms of balance, and I have very little faith that subs will ever be a good addition to the game as far as a PvP scenario is concerned. If they'd bring back operations and scenarios and do cool things with them and add subs to that, I think that would be a great use of submarines, but that's unlikely to happen since that's a good idea and a good decision. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.